Every enchanted rare, let's rank them. We have arrived at our third installment of Enchanted Mountain, and for those of you who haven't seen the first couple that we've done, go check those videos out. I'll put links in the description for those. We kind of go about stack ranking the Enchanteds in a little bit of a unique way. There's really just one key rule that we like to follow, and that's that it's going to be retail Enchanted Rares only, which means, of course, there will be no tournament cards, no prize cards, no promo cards. It will only be retail cards that you could otherwise pull from a retail store, like say like a Target or a Walmart, Best Buy, etc. So with that, this is the time where we usually like to go and throw up our honorable mentions. So I'll put them up here for you. The biggest call out that I would say as I'm kind of tweaking and refining the list each new set is that it's getting really difficult to throw some of these cards off of the mountain. I mean, there's been a couple that I kind of looked at and I was like, man, I can't believe I'm really going to leave this card out. I mean, to this point now, multiple different Disney princesses, some of which have been on the mountain before, that I then had to take off of the mountain. But every time I'd go and put them on, I'd have to take a card off, and then I wouldn't feel good about that. So the point being is it's getting really, really difficult to be able to formulate an actual mountain, but these are going to be your honorable mentions for now. Obviously, each and every one of them unbelievably important and just wonderful pieces of Lorcana history. And of course, they deserve their place on this video, and super excited that we can bring these for you on this part of the list. Starting out on our first tier of the mountain as we work our way up, and this tier is actually going to start out with a blend of collecting and game playing alike, and this tier is going to be meta staples. Now, the one thing I've always tried to do as I build out this mountain and build out my specific list of rankings of specific enchanted rares is I always like to be fair to the given moment. We have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow, the next day, the next year, etc. All we can do is use the information that we have right now to be able to create a list, and undeniably there are meta staples that are garnering a lot of traction with respect to just being very valuable, sought after, and quite frankly very expensive enchanted rares in the hobby. The other big call out I'll make is, of course, you'll see the red box over 4 out of 5 of the enchanted rares. Again, for those of you who are seeing this for the first time, the red and the green sort of symbolize like if I think it's a good opportunity to maybe go grab these cards or not. I would be somewhat cautious with most of the meta staples, just from the standpoint that obviously as they fall out of meta relevance, that's going to be one specific thread that's going to kind of go away, right? The second that it's not meta relevant, what other leg does it have to stand on in terms of, was it, for instance, part of the first set ever, etc. Which brings us to the one card that I do not have in the red, being Maui. And it's for that exact reason. I do think that while Maui is incredibly valuable right now, especially in Ruby decks, etc., I do think that even when Maui loses his meta relevancy, we will still see him be very sought after. A couple of different areas of focus, of course, one of them being that he is a first chapter enchanted, and the second being that with the release of Moana 2 coming out in the sort of short to medium term, I do think that there are bright days ahead for Maui, regardless if he continues to be used as a 4 of, or just even used in Ruby decks in general. So that's where we're going to be for the first tier, and we'll see where we're at as we climb up the mountain. Moving our way up the mountain to the next tier, this tier will simply be called High Hopes. Now, whether it be the fact that we have 2 different Disney princesses that, for one reason or another, are incredibly important to the hobby itself, being maybe a princess from the first ever set, being a princess as a main antagonist to the main big bad, which might be Ursula from Ursula's Return, whether it's the unofficial mascot of Lorcana being Mickey, or whether it be quite possibly the most gorgeous art that I have ever seen on shiny cardboard in my life, that being Mufasa. These cards I have extremely high hopes for in terms of the long-term credibility from an investment perspective in Lorcana. You'll also notice that I don't have a lean one way or another in terms of a buying opportunity. Aurora has come down in price. If you did watch the last iteration that we did of the mountain, we did have her in the overheating tier with a couple of others, and she did come down in price. I do think it's a little bit better of a buying opportunity right now, and that's not to say that Aurora was the only one. The hobby itself, it was a way wave within the hobby that did come down, right? So there's more cards than just Aurora that were losing value in terms of market credibility, price, etc. But, you know, obviously did come down a little bit in price. I do think in terms of whether it be Aurora, who, you know, has come down in price, Mickey, who I kind of had in, I think I called it the perfectly sound tier before, and with respect to just kind of feeling like, you know, he's kind of right where he belongs. Same with Ariel. Mufasa, it's really hard to have a lean on just because, like, he is quite literally going on 1 day of even being available in retail stores at time of this recording. And, you know, obviously when you'll be seeing this recording, you know, he's only been out in retail stores, you know, outside of LGS's for a couple of days. So it'll be interesting to see how his price fluctuates, but really it'll be interesting to see how all of these prices fluctuate. I will be very interested to see when we do the next iteration of the mountain where Mufasa is. It is just truly my belief that he is such an iconic character, such an iconic artwork that this card is gonna hold its water from a collectability standpoint, but truly that is just a gut feel, and I'll be interested to see if it does and which way it goes going forward as we go into new iterations of the mountain. Up the mountain we go, and as we go into the next tier, we're going to be taking a very big step, or more specifically, we're going to be taking a very big leap. And you're going to notice that I'm going to put sort of a line in between the tier that we just spoke about, High Hopes, and the tier that we're talking about now, Big Leap, specifically from the understanding that we are now approaching a tier and specific cards that we're going to talk about from now until the end of this that have quite frankly carved out very, very specific niches for themselves from a collectability standpoint in the hobby of Lorcana. When we think about the cards that we're looking at here, Stitch Carefree Surfer, Belle Strange but Special, Ursula Deceiver of All, 2 out of 3 of these cards we have as first chapter Enchanteds that no matter if the market has gone up, gone down, these 2 cards have continued to be, and more than likely will continue to be, some of the most sought after, most expensive Enchanted Rares in the hobby itself, and that needs to be able to count for something, right? That needs to be right there given specific credibility. So rightfully so, it's a big leap going from some of the Enchanteds that we've spoken about going into a card like a Stitch Carefree Surfer or a Belle Strange but Special. Then also looking at Ursula, I mean, you'll notice both Stitch and Belle I do have as buying opportunities. It is a very mute market right now, and we have no idea what the hobby is going to present for us in terms of reprints of the first chapter. With the limited information that we have right now, it would seem to be a decent dip in the market and a decent time to buy. Ursula is a completely different beast. I've done multiple different, you know, conversations, riffs, and even a full video explaining my thoughts on Ursula. And while I would be lying if I said that I did not have a very big position on Ursula in the sense of I have more than one of this card, I can't possibly begin to know what this card's future holds. Obviously, you know, very expensive card in the hobby, could be for a couple of different reasons, still see some play. Could come back into prominence with this next meta from my understanding of it. But at the same time, I do think that there just are a lot of collectors out there that see this card and see potential for a massive pop with respect to the Dreamborn, Storyborn potential misprint if you do get reprints where they do correct it. But at the same time, that's information that we're working off of that we just don't know to be true for a fact. So whether it be great buying opportunities or one where you might just want to be able to get in on the fun, regardless, these cards, however they've gotten here, they have been able to hold their weight this entire time through the duration of the hobby. 2 of them since the first chapter, and Ursula from Inklands to now, and more than worthy of being this high atop the mountain. Moving into rarefied air on the mountain, the next tier is quite simply called Undeniable. Now, one of these cards will come as probably no surprise to anyone. I believe Cinderella has been on that specific tier, this specific tier of the mountain for every single iteration of the mountain that we've done, and rightfully so, right? This card is one of the most expensive and sought after cards in the entire hobby, and quite frankly, I think a fantastic buy right now, which is why I have her in the green. From a perspective of a very mute market, where you have a card that, you know, obviously is the most sought after, best chase card in the second set, and living in a world of very limited information where we have no idea what's going on from a reprint standpoint on Rise of the Floodborn. We barely have an idea of what's going on the first chapter side of things. So I do like Cinderella as a buy, but the undoubtable star of this tier of the mountain goes to Giant Tink. I have to give a massive shout out to Giant Tink. I mean, at time of this recording, that card is the #2 most valuable, most expensive card based on market value on TCG Player, only behind one other card, which again, I believe you're gonna probably see here very soon on the mountain, right? So Giant Tink, whether it's from a meta perspective, whether it's from an Enchanted Rare perspective, playmat perspective, artwork perspective, like whatever it is that's going on with this card, it is feeding the want and the need and the nostalgia of hobbyists and enthusiasts within the Lorcana hobby, and that shows within the market value of the card. So massive shout out to Tink. It'll be interesting to see if she can keep her place here going forward as we continue on with different iterations of the mountain, but so well deserved, and huge shout out to Tink for making it this high up the mountain. We have arrived at the top of the mountain, which means of course we have arrived at the chosen one. Here we are again, and as much as I would love to shake things up and be able to give different insight on why a specific card may have jockeyed Elsa out of that top position, we are going to finish the mountain where we started it by me simply saying that the mountain is fair. I have tried to be as fair as I possibly can with each iteration of the mountain that we do on the specific day that we do that iteration, and this card continues to be one of the market-setting cards in the hobby. Certainly the market-setting card from a retail perspective in the hobby. So Elsa keeps her spot atop the mountain, should be no surprise. It will be very interesting to see where this card goes going forward. I don't have a lean on this card one way or another. It's really difficult to be able to say a card is a buying opportunity or not. Obviously, this card was all the way up to, I think, $1,200, $1,300 raw at some point. Now, obviously, we're all the way down to kind of in the 700s at time of this recording. But at the same time, it's so difficult. It could continue to go down if they do choose to reprint, if they don't. I mean, this card is going to feel the weight and the effects of that more than any other card because of how much weight it carries in the hobby, and not just from Lorcana enthusiasts. As we've talked about, this is where you start to bring in your other enthusiasts from other TCGs, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic, etc., that do want to be able to own that piece of Lorcana history, and that's what she is. And so I'll be interested to see where she goes from this iteration to the next. I do think it's a very interesting time for this card and an interesting time for the hobby from an investment perspective. But of course, Elsa atop the mountain, it is her mountain, and it will continue to be going forward until someone decides to try and knock her off. We'll see if they can do it. All right, y'all, that's going to do it for today's episode and another edition of Enchanted Mountain. Let us know in the comments section what you think, if you think there should be cards higher, lower, off the mountain, on the mountain. We love interacting with you all, and obviously, as we always say, I'm only one opinion, right? Obviously, it doesn't mean it's right, it just means it's fun to do, and we love hearing your comments and what you think. Interact with us in the comments. Let us know what you think, and can't wait to read those comments, can't wait to interact with you. But until that time, we are eternally grateful for you all, and we'll see you all on the other side. Peace out.